Hey guys, welcome to another West Coast Mopars video. Once again, not a Mopar, but I picked up this old Ford. It's a 1-ton dump truck, basically. I picked it up from a friend out close to me here. He's got about 300 old cars in a field. Actually, you guys, if you watched earlier videos on the channel, there's that the 3 parts where I walk through that field, and there's a bunch of old cars parked in it. This was one of the vehicles there. So yeah, everybody sort of calls me the Mopar guy around here, but I do like other vehicles too. I'm not just strictly a Mopar guy. It's just sort of what I know the best. But I do have a 73 F350 390 4-speed 4x4 that I've had forever. My dad had it, and when he passed away I got it. I'll actually I'll walk over here and show you guys. I've had this truck for years and years, longer than a lot of the Mopars I've had. And I do drive it a lot. Anyways, so I'm not strictly just a Mopar guy, but anyways, this truck, it's caught my eye so many times. I've been out there and I thought, what a neat old Ford. This would just be a cool truck to put back on the road. And it's been sitting out there, I think, about 20 years, but apparently it came from Nanaimo on the island here. So yeah, it's a 64 F350, 1-ton, obviously, with it's got a 352 in it and a 4-speed, and it's got a Dana 70 in the back, and the data tag says they're 513s. So whether that's still the case, they probably are the original gears, I would imagine. I ran the serial number and the data tag online, and that is I think it's called Pagoda Green. Actually, it's sort of a turquoisey color, but yeah, unfortunately, the truck sat untouched for so long. Whoops, losing the hood. And somebody came not that long ago and they cut the hood hinges off, and they used obviously like a Sawzall or a grinder, and the metal's still shiny, like it hasn't even flash rusted yet. So this must have just happened, unfortunately. And whoever took the hood off, they left the hood on the ground and pulled the carb off, or somebody's pulled the carb off a while ago, and they left it out in the rain. Like, people, it's that whole mentality of grab what you need and who cares what happens to the rest of it. It's quite sad, because apparently this truck drove around in the field, and then somebody came, took the hood hinges. Now the engine's stuck. So it's got these interesting cab lights. They're sort of on these little pivots. Looks like they move around. I've never really seen cab lights like that before. They're quite different. The antenna used to be over there on the passenger side, but somebody put it on the roof for whatever reason. Sticks way up. Oh, just gotta get the door open here. There's another headlight bezel. I gotta go back to the guy's place. I'll probably go today. I got to get hood hinges from another one that's there, and it's a 65, I think, or 66, and it's got a pretty mint grill. So I'll grab the grill. I don't necessarily want to change the grill. I'd like to keep this looking like a 64, but if you know, in the time being, just to have a better grill in there, I might do that. I don't know what these seats are from. I don't know if these are, I doubt they're original. Obviously they're like high back and they're newer looking, but they do have these interesting seat backs on them. I don't know what they're from. This is the PTO handle. Actually, when we were towing it home, the handle was down, and I looked in the mirror behind. I didn't tow it. Guy had a tow truck, and he had just had the wheels off the ground, so the rear wheels were still rolling, and the dump box was actually coming up slowly because the PTO was engaged, and I guess the pump was getting spun backwards through the, I don't know, from the wheels rolling. Something weird was happening, so I'll have to look into that. This also is a this handle doesn't quite move, but I think it's something to do with the dump. Yeah, it's got the gauges are in it here, and then it's got this, looks like an aftermarket water temp gauge, oil pressure, and there's a fuel gauge there. There was a lot of beehives in here. This is sort of the season when they all come around. The battery's over there under the floor. Somebody's got this gross, nasty old carpet in it. Yeah, it's just a neat old work truck. The sills and everything are actually in pretty good shape. Cab corners are a little crusty, but the frame, it's all in really nice shape. And it came with a couple extra doors. There's one there. There's another one in the back here. And then just this big steel box that dumps. It's got a single piston hydraulic ram underneath to dump this box. And somebody's made this sort of custom aluminum gate on the back. And I was trying to figure it out. It looks like they've got these pins here. I'm not sure if when you dump the box, if the gate was supposed to swing out. I still have to figure that out. But, oh, just a neat old truck. The wheels are 16s, not 16.5s, so that's awesome. At least I can get tires. I've got a bunch of tires in the back I could probably use up. I love the custom cab on the door handles. And these big towing, or the big truck mirrors. They're pretty neat. The bottom obviously moves on its own. Oh yeah, and there's quite the split in the roof there. Something caught there and pulled through. I don't know what happened to it, but... Okay, a little bit of update on the 64 Ford dump truck. It's really clean inside. I believe it looks like it's probably was gone through and then it just got parked, at least from what it looks like to me. But I'm just pulling the lifters out, cleaning them up, trying to free them up. Every single lifter has got a little bit of sort of crud on it. Looks like a bit of rust from them just water getting in here. And yeah, if I can get away with not pulling aheads, I will. But regardless, probably wouldn't be a bad idea anyways, just to go through it and see what it's got. Who knows what the pistons look like. Then I could measure the bore and see what this engine is. Somebody's welded these plates to the frame, built their own sort of motor mounts. So I don't know, I ran the serial number because this is a Canadian truck. Of course it's going to be weird, but the serial number comes up as it should be a 292, but I didn't think that engine, like a Y block, but I didn't think that engine went into 64. So I don't know, you guys tell me. If you guys know, comment below and let me know. But regardless, whatever's in here is probably a bit of an upgrade. So okay, I pulled the heads. Nothing too special going on. They're not that bad. These valves, this was, I believe, the number 1. Fords are backwards, right? So number 1 cylinder. Rocker arm assemblies and push rods look pretty good. They're pretty clean. Nothing too scary there. Some rust down there and some at the top. And then, but the rest of them actually look pretty good. And this side, is pretty clean. So if I could clean up that, you know, everybody else, that's number 2, but on Fords that's number 1, right? It goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So yeah, if I clean up that number 1, it should hopefully spin over. It looks like, to me it looks like somebody, this was either rebuilt or I've got these same pistons with those relief cutouts in my 73 Ford over there, and it has an S-Code GT engine out of a Fairlane in it. So, and it was also gone through it, you know, before I bought it, or before I ended up with it. But it's got those same pistons with those cutouts, those relief cutouts for the valves. Yeah, could be a good promising engine. The exhaust manifolds are, this one's not bad. The other one's broken on the top there, so I'll probably get some different manifolds or see where this takes me. But yeah, once I can clean up that one in there, you can see it's pretty crusty down there, just a lot of water sitting in it. That's obviously the problem. Clean that up. Hopefully I can shock it free. I've had good luck. Put a 2x4 in here and smack the top of it with a sledgehammer, and that's usually enough to shock it and break the rings free. So I'll give that a try and hopefully I can get it spin over. Okay, I took a wire wheel and sort of smoothed that out. Got this side a bit better. Had to really, there was some pretty thick rust in there just building up, so I sort of chipped it out and cleaned it up. What I'll do is I'll probably end up dropping the pan, pull the crank, knock the pistons out. I'll leave the crank if I can, but get these pistons out. And I've had pretty good luck in the past just using those stones on a drill and just honing, and then you get new cross hatching. You can actually see, I don't know if the camera will pick it up, I can actually see cross hatching in these cylinders still. And I also noticed how well they'll pick it up. Way down there you can see they're 30 over. I don't know if you can see that, but they're stamped 30 over. So this has obviously been rebuilt at some point. My guess is that engine got rebuilt and then truck probably got sold. And then I'm thinking the next guy couldn't get it started because there was 5 or 6 starter relays on the floor inside, and a bunch of weird wiring has been sort of cut into and hacked, and so I'm guessing they couldn't get it started, and then they gave it to the wrecker, and then the wrecker didn't want to squish it, so they gave it to my buddy, and it sat out at his place for about 20 years. Okay, give this a quick hone and we'll see. Hopefully it'll clean up a bit. Try not to break my little... There goes my camera. Bump the camera. Try not to break my little stones there, but I think that will actually clean up quite well. See if I can get that in there. That's the number one. That's the one we looked at earlier that had all kinds of rust. So let me wipe this out with a rag, and we'll see how it looks. Okay, that's how we're looking. There's obviously some marks there. I'll feel those and see how bad they are. The top side's actually, I think, the worst side. And I did measure the bore. It is 4.066. So do the math, I think that's a 30 over 390. So I thought it was a 352, just from the era and being it's an FE 64 Ford. But it looks like somebody's probably replaced that, so that's pretty cool. Let's see if I can't get 360 out of it now, considering it was stuck about 20 minutes ago. Oh, still a little tight though. Now, which one's stuck now? Yeah, let's try going backwards through it. got a tight spot there. I don't know what it is. Back and forth. Might want to try a breaker bar again. Yep, there we go, fought through it. Definitely got some tight spots, but pretty smooth until you get to that one spot. Hopefully we can maybe run the stones on it just a little more. I'm thinking I'll probably, even though I can see cross hatching, I'm going to go through each cylinder and just run those stones through them just to clean it up a little bit. There's obviously a little bit of crud and stuff stuck in the cylinders there, making it a bit hard to turn, but each rotation it gets a little easier, so that's good. Okay, I was rotating it, and number 8 piston doesn't move, so thought, oh, I better pull the pan, and here's what happened. That is the remnants of the number 8 rod, and I guess I never noticed this hole in the oil pan, so that's good news. All kinds of chunks down here, so there was some serious damage occurred. So I haven't yet looked at it. Let's crawl underneath here and see the rod. It's all chewed up. Yeah, it's twisted. That's really bad. I don't know how well you can see that up there. Piston's all mangled. So something came apart. That's too bad. The rest of it looks pretty good. And there's the rest of the rod for this cylinder. So these two are pretty terrible. I can't believe this one was even moving up and down. I'll probably just pull this engine out. I do have another 390. It's just a stock 390. That's a good plan, I think. Alright, here I am at the donor truck with the 390. It's under here. Not the prettiest thing, but it was a runner. I actually drove this truck around. This is the chassis to my old green Ford pickup here. So I got hoist in the back. This is my old 4x, but this green body was on that 2-wheel drive chassis, and I swapped it over years ago. The body that was on this rusted out, but yeah, so here we are, me and Brad. We're gonna cut some bushes and pull that truck out of the back and pull that 390 today out in the dirt here. And then I can put that on the engine hoist, or on the stand at home, and go through it. And that's the plan for the dump truck. Okay, got the engine up on the hoist. Thought I'd show you guys this. That is water coming out of the dipstick tube. It's been coming out 3, 4, 10 minutes maybe. Oh, that's promising. So that's just a steady stream of water, because this thing sat uncovered for who knows how long. Oh, I'm getting the shakes here. That's wild. That's wild. I didn't. So yeah, who wants to guess that this won't be a dump gas down the carb and run it? This will be a pull the pistons and wonder why I spent all day pulling this engine out of this truck. Look at that. That is just wild.
Oh, it's pouring. Jeez. Got more water than oil in it.
Oh yeah. Oh man. So yeah, that's where we're at with this project. There's the hoist tipping over in the dirt. Like I said, I went on Marketplace this morning and looked at 390s, and you can get rebuild ones, or people, you know, I've lost the receipts, but it's been rebuilt and they want 4 or 5 grand. Or we come and spend the day out in the bushes, hoping that this will survive. The sad thing is, like I said, this chassis and that engine was in this truck as a 2-wheel drive, and I drove it around and then kept this stuff here thinking keep it as a spare. Yep. Okay, got that 390 home. I was gonna leave the transmission, but it was just easier to pull them as a pair, so here it is. So you guys saw how much water was coming out. I mean, I shut the video off. I stopped recording midway. Man, it must have been full all the way to the top. We tipped it over at one point. There was water coming out the valve cover. So we'll see what it looks like inside. My hopes are not high, but hey, at least where I am. I mean, I did search for 390s earlier, and they are not, you know, I used to see those 70s Fords, those pickups driving around all the time. Every one of them had an FE, but you just don't see them anymore. It's like all of a sudden the scrap prices got higher and these things just started getting crushed, and so it's got a C6 behind it, but I'm not gonna, I'll pull that off and probably shove it in the corner. The manifolds are nice, which is good because the ones on the other one are cracked. Got a little banged up there when I had to pull it out of the bush. It kind of tipped over and we were frustrated and just sort of yanked on it with a chain. Yeah, oh well. The heads from the other engine they look like they've been redone, so I might just, we'll see how bad these are, but get this transmission off here and stick it on an engine stand. And then tear into it and let's see what this thing looks like. Okay, I got 390 separated on the stand. Just sort of shoved it in the corner for now. I'll start working on this tomorrow and get those heads pulled, intake heads, pull the pan, flip it over, and see what we got. Okay, got the valve covers pulled off. Here's the first look of what it looks like in the heads. A lot of water got in the oil there. And the other side, there's actually water sitting in the top of the head. You can see it there. It's basically just water. There's not even really any oil there. So that's first look. Down in the distributor hole, looks a little, it looks so-so. So I'm just going to vacuum it up a little better. Okay, I got that intake pulled off. Man, I always forget. You know it's heavy, those FE intakes. Like, those things are ridiculous. But I always seem to forget just how heavy they are. So, yeah, I got that thing off. And here's what it looks like inside. Hopefully I can get those lifters out. This one's pretty bad. Yeah, and the other side. That rust came out when I hammered on a couple of the valves that were stuck. Same with this one. This cylinder's pretty bad. Those two. Yeah, that looks like terrible news in there. Hopefully I can clean that up. And you come to the crank, and that's what you see. Now the other pickup, the other engine is nice and clean. I will try to clean the crank. I'm sure it'll clean up. We won't really know just how bad it is till we get that sorted out, but I guess I will begin the disassembly and cleaning process, and we'll see what we've got. That's too bad. This was, like I said, this was a good running engine, and it just got left outside with no cover. So, Oh well. Okay, I've got one of the caps off here. I think it's number 2. See, the bearings are, I don't know how well you can see that. They're definitely showing some copper, and I did pull it out, flip it over, 1973, which is the year of the engine. So these look like original bearings, still standard. It cleaned up pretty easy. I just sprayed some brake clean, and I started cleaning this a little bit, just spray clean and paper towels just to clean up a bit. But I'm thinking I'm just going to clean it out. Probably buy some new bearings and rings, and we will see how it does. At least that's my plan right now. I don't know. I don't like spending lots of money. The smart thing to do would be to hot tank it. Probably bore it out, because who knows how well those are going to clean up. But I don't know. That's almost too easy. It's almost more fun to just put it back together, bearings, rings, and see how it does. At least for me, it's no problem if something goes wrong, because I enjoy working on it anyways. Okay, I know you guys are all probably laughing at me now. I got the shop here full of projects and good spots to pull an engine, but you know, of course I'm out here in the dirt. But oh well, whatever. Just got the hoist hooked up to this short block. Just gonna yank it out of here. I already got it separated from the transmission back there. Yeah, and just basically thinking I'll jack this up with the hoist, and then I've still got my tractor hooked up to the truck back there with a chain. So I'll probably just lift this engine up high enough to get it out and pull the truck straight back with the tractor. And I've done that before. It's, you know, it's not ideal, but I also don't have concrete out here. Okay, well that was pretty easy. This came out pretty good. This manifold broke, but it was already cracked and broken. One of the ears had already fallen off. That's not the end of the world. I do have that other 390's got pretty good manifolds with it, so no big deal. There's bell housing. I don't know the shape of the clutch. I'll have to take a good look at that. Yeah, if the clutch is savable, I might just run it, but we'll see. It's out now. It'd be pretty stupid to, you know, little tiny bit of life left on the clutch, put it back together, and then, you know, 6 months from now go, why did I do that? So it might just be worth it to put a new one in. They all seem to be diaphragm clutches these days. This thing in here is an old 3-finger. And I can already see some of the fingers have some pretty good wear. I'll probably pop this apart in a bit here and see what it looks like. And at that, I guess I'll probably take the flywheel down and get it resurfaced. Okay, well this pretty much answers my question. Flywheel looks okay. It's not too badly grooved. It's got a little bit of mark there, but I do have a brake lathe in the shop meant for drums and rotors, but it's an AccuTurn, and you can also turn flywheels on it. And I did turn the flywheel on that 49 Fargo I've got, 440 4-speed. I put the flywheel on the brake lathe and turned it on there, just like a rotor, except you just don't use both sides with the teeth, you just use the one. As long as you true it up, it actually turned out pretty good. I might do that, save a bit of money. I mean, it's only 60 bucks, but you know, it's when you got constant projects on the go like me, it's, you know, you just keep dumping money into little things. You can save a lot of money doing a lot of stuff yourself. The disc is not good. I thought it looked half decent until I sort of looked over here. You can see it's just smoothed right out there. So I'm not gonna obviously not gonna put this back in. And the pressure plate is, it's like worn on one side. I don't know what it was doing. It's pretty grungy too. The fingers, the arms aren't This one's a little worn more than the rest, so it was like one side had been pushing on the disc over the others. There's adjustments here. These, if you back these off, I've done it on the Fargo there. You move the fingers up and down, each one on its own, to get more pressure on certain areas. So either someone who's in here screwing around, see this bolt looks different. If you can see that, the head is different than those ones there. So maybe somebody was already in here and messing around with it. The fingers look the same on the inside. Okay, on the 390 here, I've got the crank back in place. I put new main bearings in it. I used plastic gauge and they were all within specs, so I just replaced it with new mains. Cleaned up the crank pretty good. It was just covered. You guys saw it. It was just like a milkshake in here. So cleaned that up. I put new rear main seal in. It's been a while since I've been in a 390. I forgot about these stupid seals on the sides where you got to hammer the pins down. So that was a bit of a struggle. But anyways, got these all in and torqued down. And I'm going to put new frost plugs on the sides here. This was an old heater core. An old block heater. And I'll just replace these. I may as well while I'm in here. You know, you put it all back together and then it leaks because you're an idiot and you didn't do it. So, okay, got this crank back in, rods, pistons are back in. I put in new main bearings and new rod bearings, and also new rings. They're just cast rings, but everything was still within spec. I measured the ring gap and it was good, and I used plastic gauge on the mains and the rods, and it was all still within specs. So it's coming along. I'm just gonna run into town and get some frost plugs, and I gotta order an oil pump. That engine in the dump truck, the one that came out of it, has a brand new timing chain in it, so I'm just going to use that because there's no point in buying another one. I mean, it was still super tight. I don't think it even had any miles on it. You know, being cheap, I'm tempted to I'm not going to, but you want to use the oil pump because you know it's brand new, but you look at the oil pan and you see all the crap that went through it, and so you tell yourself, nope, don't do it. Yeah, so I'll have to get an oil pump. They're only $50, so I'll just get a Melling oil pump. Frost plugs, I put in. Well, I'm just waiting on a couple actually here. They were. I can't believe the parts store was all completely out of stock of 1.75" plugs. That's the problem with that store. They run out and they just don't think to order anymore. I'm confused, but whatever. I put rod bearings in and main bearings. I think I showed that in the last little part. It's been a couple days since I worked on this engine. Don't mind the crazy clutter in this corner. I don't know what happened over here. And yeah, I've got gonna put the oil pan back on. I was just checking everything's torqued in there. And I'll flip it over. I've got the lifters sitting over soaking. I sort of took the hydraulic lifters apart and cleaned them up because they actually had water inside them under the plungers. So, and they're just over here. Got them sort of laid out in this box here. But this one here was just not plunging back up, so I was trying to free it up a little bit. I know this sounds cheap, but lifters got expensive, man. They're, you know, you could dump like a couple $100 just in lifters, and then you got to break them in on your cam and hope nothing goes wrong. I'd rather just use these lifters that came off that cam. They were still in great shape, you know, like they got a little bit of wear. Well, not a little bit of wear. They've obviously got some wear, but they do match the cam. So if I can save those, I will. I'm assuming the heads on the rebuilt engine were rebuilt with the engine. But these heads were good runners too. And this engine was actually a propane engine, so these should be pretty clean. So I might just put these back on, go through them. But anyways, yeah, not all that exciting. Just got putting this back together, and I did get a new clutch for it too. Okay, I got the pan back on, timing cover, the water pump. The pump itself was actually, it's been replaced. I pulled the rear cover off, and it's like a brand new pump in there. Interestingly enough, the pump on the rebuilt engine was just an old crusty water pump. So I decided to go with the heads from the rebuilt engine. They're just a lot cleaner. The studs came out easier. They're the identical head, but I'm probably just going to run the valve springs from the other heads because I know they match the cam. I don't know what cam is in the other engine, so these springs may match that cam, but not the cam in the engine I'm rebuilding. So I've just been cleaning up these seats with what I use is this Permatex valve grinding compound, and it's basically just, I don't know if you can see it in there, it's just basically metal, zinc and some grease, and you just dip your valve basically in it. You put the valve back in the head, and then you use a cordless drill, and you just, you know, put it on the end here, and you run the drill, and you basically just seat, you know, this one actually went here. So you just run the drill on the other side, and it pulls this valve against the head, and you cut new seats with the valve, so the valve matches the seat on the head, if that makes sense. It's a quick way to sort of do a quick valve job without actually cutting the head with a machine or anything. And I did do this on the tractor, and I mean, those seats were so bad, you shone a flashlight on it with the valve closed, and there was just all kinds of light coming through. They were so rusty. And I spent, you know, on the tractor I probably spent a good 20 minutes on each valve. This head I'm just, you know, a couple minutes, but it's a pretty easy way to make the seats a little fresher. Okay, so here's one for example. I don't know if you can see it. I dabbed some of that grease on just on this part where it seats. Then you just put her back in the head. You basically just put your drill on the end of the valve. Tighten her down. I usually put it on the first speed, the slow one. And you just put your hand on the other side on the valve. You run the drill, doesn't matter which way. You kind of just go back and forth a little bit. You can hear it cutting when you put pressure on it. That's probably good. Take the drill off, pull the valve out, don't drop it. Just take a cloth and wipe that off there. And you can see, well, you can see this, but on the edge of the valve, nice clean surface there. And you can just see the new cut side there, sort of cleaned it up. Same with the rest of these. And that's all there is to it. And that's, you know, like I said, that's a really cheap, quick way to just clean up the seats a little bit. Okay, just the second head. All I got to do now is get this one broken stud out of here, so I'll just heat it up, put a pipe wrench on it, hopefully get it out. Otherwise I'll have to try and drill it. These ones are threaded, but they always break. They always break. That's a Ford thing, because they come through the other side. So I've just been drilling these a little bit bigger and just running a bolt straight through and a nut on the other side. That way at least you can get it off in the future. I cleaned up the bottom. I'll just put this back together. I put new seals under the springs there. And then I can put this head on the engine over there, and then we're basically just down to the intake, and then I can put this engine back in this truck here. And then the real fun begins with the wiring nightmare. This wiring, I'll just give you a quick view at this. Look, every single connection somebody came along and they crimped on every single one. They crimped on another end. I don't know why they thought that they were, I don't know what was happening. It's a little frustrating. It's like just butt splices everywhere. So this wiring is going to be interesting. Okay, I've got the flywheel all set up here on my brake lathe for the 390. I've done this before. I did this once with my 49 Fargo with that 440, and when I put the 4-speed in, I turned the flywheel on the brake lathe and it worked great. So the only thing with it is you're kind of limited to space. So I've got it set up. This is for doing rotors. Now, unfortunately, this flywheel, I don't know how well if you can see it, some of the teeth are a little bit broken off. There's some on the other side that were a bit worse. I'm really hoping, I don't have another ring gear this size, so I'm hoping this one will be okay. I mean, it's not the end of the world if I got to pull the engine out later, but they obviously were driving it around with that. I'm hoping it'll be okay. So this side, I mean, it's fairly clean, but there's quite a big ridge here. So I'm just going to cut all the way back to the end here. I basically have just enough room. I don't know how well you can see down there. Just enough. I've got, like, right now there's maybe not even a quarter, maybe 3/16 clearance. So I can go in a little further, right, if I wind this in. And that should give me, if I adjust this blade out just a little further, just enough to cut all the way. I'm pretty sure, I think the flywheel for the Fargo was actually, I think it might have been, I think this is a 12-inch and it was maybe an 11. So I had a little more room. And then on this side, it's pretty tight down there, so I don't have a lot of, luckily when you're cutting, it's cutting in, so it's gonna move this end out. Yeah, well, we'll see how this goes. And hopefully I can cut all the way back. That's my main concern, just getting a nice clean cut all the way back. And I already spun it on the motor, and it's very true. It's not wobbling at all, so we should get a good clean, even cut all the way. Okay, here it is after running it on the brake lathe. It's smooth all the way across. This stuff, there's some little minor cracking. Minor, I should say, noticeable cracking. It looks like it got pretty hot. Like someone was riding the clutch a lot, which not surprising if this, you know, sort of got a dump box. They're probably riding the clutch and trying to dump stuff, would be my guess. But I've seen worse, and I've put worse back in. This is not, I can't catch my fingernail on it or anything. It's not like it's a big crack. So none of these are. So I think I'm just gonna, rather than continuously turn it and never clear the stuff up, I think I'm just gonna clean it up and put it together. Okay, so I got the engine almost in. I know it looks in right now, but You can see back there, I still have a bit of a gap, but my motor mounts are in. So I'm thinking I've got the motor mounts in backwards because the bolts are offset, so you can unbolt them and flip them around. And I remember when I put them on there, I remember thinking, wasn't quite sure. I had sort of marked them top driver's side, but then I got to thinking, like, was I looking at it backwards? I'm pretty sure I put them on backwards. So I'm just going to lift the engine, take the motor mounts out completely, get that clutch seated on the input shaft and lined up, get the bell housing bolts in, and then I can just lift this up a little bit, put the motor mounts back on the right way, and then I'm probably going to leave this rad support off for a while I tackle all the front stuff on the engine. You know, run a fuel line, make brake lines, because otherwise I'm climbing over the fenders, and it seems kind of easy right now to just leave this open. So, okay, 390 is in. So, yeah, when I was talking about those motor mounts, I did have to flip them. Basically, the studs were on the wrong side. I needed them further towards the front, and I had them towards the rear, so it was to end up pulling the engine out. I got the Z-bars back in. I think that's the Y-block Z-bar, and then somebody's just made this homemade bracket here, and I guess it works. I don't know. I guess we'll find out when it falls apart later. I've never driven the truck. I don't know if the clutch pedal worked properly. It looks like they just basically welded a nut to that bracket and then smoothed it out, and so that Z-bar was riding on the nut. But yeah, it's all bolted up. The clutch splines lined up. I didn't forget the throwout bearing, like we normally do. So yeah, I'm just gonna probably stop here for this portion of the video. I'll call this a part 1. Part 2 will be, assembling the rest of the engine, wiring, brakes, so the dash wiring, put the gauge back together, gauge cluster, clean it up in here a little bit, and there's also the hydraulic system for the dump box. There's changing the tires. We got a whole list of stuff here, so this will be like a multi-part series, I guess, so we'll call this part 1. So thanks for watching, guys, and appreciate you all subscribing and commenting and checking out the videos, and yeah, we'll see you on part 2.